Okay, folks, it's your buddy Mike Messier. People are demanding my opinions on all this Vince McMahon stuff. Well, fine, folks. We'll get into that. I have downloaded the official 67-page legal documents that's available for the public, of which I'm in the public, you're in the public. Brian Alvarez was kind of tiptoeing through this stuff yesterday. He was having a hard time sharing some of this stuff, as would anyone. I've kind of taken a peek. I'm going to go through page by painful page later today, and I'll do another podcast about that. In the meantime, let's have some raw, so to speak, opinions. What do you guys think? If you're on Facebook in the Foreign Object, if you're on Twitter, One Pro Wrestling and Sports Fan, you can easily hop on over to the YouTube, One Pro Wrestling and Sports Fan on YouTube. I think you have to come over here to make your comments seen. I can see your comments in live time. This is Saturday, the 27th. Yes, indeed, the Royal Rumble will be later tonight. Uh, Longtime wrestling fan from Facebook. Sometimes I can see your comments on Facebook, but I can't always see the names. If you want to identify yourself, you can. If not, you can be a Mr. X or a Miss X, whatever you like. But thanks for tuning in. Look, this is the type of stuff that us wrestling fans, we've become more and more used to in the last couple of years. 2022, it's my buddy Shane McKenna in the Wrestling Fans Facebook group. Nice name for the group, Wrestling Fans. And Shane, I know, is excited for the Rumble. And this is one of these subtopics, guys. Are you able to separate your love of pro wrestling, WWE specifically, from these allegations against Vince McMahon? And I should point out and not assume that everything he's accused of, he's guilty of. Although, to be quite honest, with John Laurinaitis being removed from his position a few years ago, and now Vince McMahon stepping down once again yesterday from WWE and TKO. I mean, do people just leave their jobs every time they're accused of something? Do people just leave their positions every time they're accused of something? I mean, if that was the case, we wouldn't have had a president for the last 200 years because presidents of the country always get accused of stuff and they don't just run and hide and every time they're accused. So, I mean, to be quite frank, that's why some of this smoke seems to be leading to fire, but who knows? I did have an initial reaction a few days ago when a friend of mine sent me some of the texts apparently that Vince had sent this lady, and they were so over the top and so absurd and just poorly written with all the exclamation points. I kind of had a feeling like, is this a joke? Like, are these fake? Are these tweets supposedly from Vince to this woman fake because they're so over the top? So I mean, look, there's three sides to every story. There's mine, yours, and the truth. And if Vince is totally innocent of all this stuff, then I would apologize. However, the fact that he's making all these concessions, paying millions of dollars to this woman, and all the NDAs. I mean, do you pay millions of dollars to somebody just because they accuse you of stuff and you didn't do it? I mean, that doesn't seem very logical, especially for a guy like Vincent Kennedy McMahon Jr., as I like to call him, because he fought tooth and nail against the federal government. He was in legal proceedings with WCW back in the late 90s all the time. He's not afraid to go to court. Phil, was the guy's name? Phil Mushnick, the reporter from 30 or 40 years ago, was always on Vince. Uh, my buddy here, AJ, is asking or stating, Mikey, will Trump be removed from WWE Hall of Fame? Stupid to begin with. Stupid that he's in it. Well, I mean, look, those guys are buddies. And I mean, I had a video going back, I think, to 2017 or 2018. If you're a fan, if you support Donald Trump, I'm sorry, if you support WWE / NXT, you also support Donald Trump. And I put this video out there. It got thousands of dislikes. I believe it was, I want to say, No DQ picked it up and put it on their website. And my video was basically just exploring that, Vince McMahon's money was funding Donald Trump's 2016 campaign. And whether you like Donald Trump politically or not, some things I think I enjoy what he says, some things I certainly don't. But you have to admit that Vince McMahon funded this guy. I mean, these guys are in tight since WrestleMania 4 and 5. I believe at one of those WrestleManias, in fact, I know it. I want to say it was the fifth one. you can actually see Marla Maples in the audience, pretty prominently seated, and that was before she was the second Mrs. Trump. That's back when she was a mistress. So I mean, their old boy ways go way back. Okay, Trump and McMahon, they're in tight. Now, is will Trump be removed from the WWE Hall of Fame? I doubt it. I don't think so. And to be honest with you, it's funny, not funny, but Hulk Hogan was suspended from that for 3 or 4 years, and he got put back in. Of course, there is no actual WWE Hall of Fame. I mean, it's a concept, it's a paradigm in Vince McMahon's mind that we all fight about and share and are so concerned about. But hey, you give me a tour of the WWE Hall of Fame. Let me see the different exhibitions in the different rooms. There are none because it doesn't exist. Mikey, Vince is dead from TKO. He's listed as Chris Benoit as not existing. So will you watch it now? I don't know, buddy. I mean, look, the taint of Vince McMahon, it's kind of like when the wrestlers used to go running from the WWE or the WWF when Terry Taylor had to reboot and recalibrate himself and find some dignity as the tailor-made man in WCW after he had been tainted and his whole career was basically ruined with the Red Rooster gimmick. I mean, now the WWE is in a similar position itself. Like they're so tainted and they stink so much of this abhorrent situation. I mean, just because I mean, look, there. Let's not be naive either, folks. I saw so many people on Twitter yesterday. I feel sorry for them, or I almost do, because they seem to think that because Vince has stepped down, that he's no longer profiting. He stepped down before and he came back. Why can't he come back this time? I mean, until there's criminal action pressed against this guy, or until the wrestling fans, especially the WWE fans themselves, grow a sackle of testosterone in their sack and stand up and say, we're not going to support this product, he'll do whatever he wants. So I mean, the WWE fans are just so naive, so childlike. They're always asking, what are we going to get for WrestleMania? Are we going to get The Rock versus Roman Reigns in Peru? Are we going to get Cody Rhodes getting his dream? I mean, if you really think about it, WWE fans, you really put the WWE on a Santa Claus like pedestal. You're always wondering what you're going to get for wrestling Christmas, that is WrestleMania every year. It's childish, it's immature. I mean, yes, I'm still a pro wrestling fan. Yes, I still watch. But at least I have some goddamn perspective on this thing. And a lot of you folks don't. No offense. Mikey, Vince has no voting right to get back in the company. We'll see. I mean, didn't we go through this song and dance in 2022? I mean, didn't he, retire with a tweet, and then Stephanie came out, and everybody was chanting Vince, 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 and then what was it, 2 or 3 weeks later, he was back. Some other folks have been asking me or bringing up the point, saying that is all this stuff, and there's been some memes and some tweets going around. Is all this type of stuff why Shane McMahon, his kind of coming and going from the WWE has been a little bit erratic or a little poke in, poke out? Wasn't it? Was it 2 years ago at WrestleMania, or was it just this past WrestleMania? Wow, it's almost getting to be a full year ago, but he had his little thing with the Miz, but then like Shane blew out a quad or blew out a fucking MCL or ACL or some other leg abbreviation, and he couldn't stand up, and so Snoop Dogg had to come in the ring and take over the little spot with the Miz. I just bring that up because it has been interesting that Shane McMahon has done kind of the pokey in, the pokey out of the WWE for several years, actually decades, if you think about it. I mean, I think he was fully gone from the company for 7 years, and he was doing the Netflix thing in Korea, like the Netflix version of Netflix Korea or whatever. He pronouns pal. He had contract with TKO saying he can't be fired. Only way he would be officially done if he's dead or resigned from them. Okay, fair enough. But does Vince have the power of unresigning? Does he have the power of unretiring? I don't know the answer, AJ, and maybe you do. I don't. I don't. My point is that we went through this similar thing 2 years ago, the summer of 2022, by my memory, And I don't understand WWE fans that are still see. Here's the problem with WWE fans and pro wrestling fans in general. You're always expecting these wrestlers, these promoters, these people you see on television. You're always expecting them to have the same middle class, middle of the road, white bread morality and integrity that you have. And I'm not picking on your morality or integrity. I'm saying that for most people with a basic set of values, don't hurt other people, don't steal from people, don't lead anyone to physical injury or death, don't shit on some woman's head. People with these basic core values always want to apply these values to their heroes, to the people they live vicariously through on television. Don't cheat on your spouse is another one. And then you're always so goddamn shocked and surprised when the wrestlers don't live up to your expectations. Well, the wrestlers are wrestlers for a reason because they don't have middle of the road, white bread, middle class, uh, everyday 9 to 5 values. They live by a different rule or less. No rules is their rule. They cheat on their spouses, okay? We saw Paige and Xavier Woods and the other bum doing their menage a trois, and who knows who was on the camera for that, if it was just on a pedestal, a tripod or whatever. But the point is, these wrestlers have a lack of values, a lack of ethics, a lack of morality. That's why they're in the traveling circus. I mean, when the pandemic came and people were thinking, "Oh, the wrestlers must be so happy they get to stay closer to home to be with their wives." The intelligent wrestling fan knew that the wrestlers hated being home with their wives and kids. I mean, look at Ric Flair. He never liked being home with his wife and children. He wants to be out on the road caravanting with the rats, as they call them. I mean, it's a whole business that calls female fans rats, their term, not mine, and you're expecting them to treat women fairly and equally? Wake the fuck up. I mean, what can I tell you that I haven't told you a million goddamn times? I mean, just look through my catalog of videos going back to 2017, calling out Vince McMahon, going on the Vince Russo show, calling out the WWE for their work in Saudi Arabia, calling out Brock goddamn Lesnar. I did, not you. I did. Calling out Joey Ryan, another goddamn pervert. So I've been doing all this. Where the fuck have you all been? Let's see. What did you say about Pat Patterson? I bet Pat Patterson. I'm sure he did, buddy. I'm sure he did. I mean, I always refer people to Al Perez's shoot video, ironically enough, with RF video. But if you find the Al Perez video where he tells the story of the motel with the 2 beds or the singular bed, look that up. I mean, that's all you. Yeah, all this stuff is not new. I mean, if you go back to the Phil Donahue show, 1992, the Ring Boys scandal. It's all there. It's all been talked about. But the WWE fans put their heads in the goddamn sand. And now they're waking up and they think that, okay, now everything's changed and everything's good because Vince is gone. His stench remains. Mikey, Shane and Vince are no longer family because he left Vince. He knew and tried to stop Vince. That's all speculative, buddy. No offense. But couldn't. And that's why Shane was a referee as punishment and other stupid things he did. I mean, Shane, I mean, that who knows what's going on with Shane. I mean, if you look at his history of jumping off hells in the cells and all the stunts that he did, I mean, he did seem to be self-punishing in some regard. Obviously, as a McMahon, he did not be needing to take all those horrific bumps, but he seemed to enjoy doing them, and maybe he was tempting fate. Maybe he couldn't live with himself. We do know, I think, that Shane McMahon has 3 sons. One of them, I believe, is now a high school or a college wrestler. People grow up quickly, huh? And I don't know if Shane has any inheritance coming to him. I'm assuming he does, but I don't know. When Shane returned, Vince didn't look so happy, but Steph was an Undertaker versus Shane was because Taker, that's the WrestleMania, was because Taker was a Vince guy. I wonder if he had involvement, and Brock was mentioned this. Did his legacy is dead. If you're now we're talking about good old Brock. Yeah, very interesting stuff, folks. I mean, apparently Brock Lesnar might be escaped from all this stuff because apparently whatever he was promised with this young woman, I mean, who else could it be but Brock? If they're talking about a UFC champion, the only other guy was Cain Velasquez, but he really wasn't there very long, and the timing I don't think matches up. So it had to be Lesnar. The only other UFC champion that I can think of would be a Ken Shamrock, but that's the last time he was in WWF was when it was WWF back in '99. So it has to be Brock. I mean, some people are splitting hairs and saying they didn't name Brock, but they more or less did. So I don't know. I really don't. I mean, some people are. I'll go into this point. Some people are bringing up all these gifts that this woman, Janelle, received from Vince. Pretty expensive gifts. I mean, I'm sure some of you wrestling fans would let Vince shit on your head for a BMW. But I mean, what can I say? I mean, the legalities of this case are going to move forward. We'll see. I mean, to be quite honest with you, I'm not sure how old Vince is right now. I think I want to say he's 76, 77. Will Vince even survive? I mean, if he really has his side of the story here that's different from these accusations, will he live long enough to tell his story? And I mean, that's another thing that's very interesting, folks. You know, when I was a kid, Michael Jackson, the pop singer, was the number one pop singer in the world. Okay, him, Madonna, that was pretty much it. They were on all the covers of the magazines, tops of the charts, and everything. And then as the years went on, and Michael, his complexion started to change, his appearance started to change. These accusations came out, I think, in 1992, 93. Suddenly, he wasn't so popular anymore, and everyone had all this concern and rumors, and he's holding his baby over a windowsill and all these things. And then a couple of years after that, there's this, I think it was an Australian reporter did like this kind of bootleg documentary on Michael Jackson. I want to say that it aired on Fox or something like that. And so suddenly everybody turned against Michael Jackson for many years. Okay. I mean, if you're old enough to remember this stuff, you're old enough to remember this stuff. And so Michael Jackson was persona non grata. His albums weren't selling as well. He wasn't being featured on magazines. He had become a punchline on late night talk shows like Jay Leno or Dave Letterman at the time. I'm not saying they exactly made fun of him, but stuff like that would make fun of him. And then I believe it was 2006, the summer. I remember pretty clearly the day that Michael Jackson died, and suddenly he was the saint again. And I happened to be at a film school where there was a lot of international students, people from Europe. And when Michael Jackson died, they all got very upset. Like they didn't have the American thoughts that I had that he had his legacy had been questioned and disgraced for years. And so there was a real difference of interpretation of this guy's death. These European students were very upset, like someone close to them had passed away. They did not have these uh, feelings about him, mixed feelings like the Americans did. The Americans were kind of quiet. The Americans there were kind of, just didn't know what to think. And then years later, after Michael passed away, suddenly he became a saint again. Suddenly he became cleaned up in death. Death makes angels of us all and puts angel wings where we had raven's claws or whatever the hell Jim Morrison said. So suddenly he was a great guy again. And then a few years after that, or several years after that, this HBO show comes along, Leaving Neverland, this documentary, and all these horrible things they said about Michael Jackson that he did with these children and so forth. And suddenly everybody hates Michael Jackson again. Okay. And then a year or less after that, some people said, well, actually, those documentary guys made up their stories. We can disprove their allegations. We can disprove their stories. And suddenly Michael's great again. So the point is, I was never in the company of Michael Jackson. I obviously never went to Neverland. I never met the guy, never was anywhere close to him. But my perception of this individual has been twisted and turned and positive, negative, greatest pop singer of all time, worst human being of all time. All these different emotions or viewpoints on this one individual come through, but I never met him in person. Just like I've never met Vince McMahon, just like I've never met Shane McMahon, just like you've probably never met these people. Maybe some of you have. But my point is, who's to say what's what? And we like to think about things like innocent until proven guilty, but then you get this 67-page document in your hand, and it does leave some early concerns. Mikey, working the Hart family bio. Natalie going to help with it. If get someone to play Owen, I hope it's Owen Wilson. Looks just like him. Yeah, a friend of mine, I have to give him credit. Colin Steele's been saying that for 15 years. He was telling me that I should try to get Owen Wilson to play Owen Hart. I had no money to pull that off, but I mean Owen Wilson does have the face of Owen Hart, but I would contend this. I mean, I think Owen passed away, I want to say at age 38. I think Owen Wilson is probably 54, 55 years old right now, maybe 52. Uh, does Owen Wilson have the physicality in his early to mid 50s to play a guy who passed away at age 38? Especially if you're going to look at this, like the Calgary Stampede era of Owen when he was probably a teenager. The Blue Blazer run, he was probably in his early to mid 20s. He wrestled until he passed away in 99. I mean, it's tough because Owen Wilson does have a great face for Owen Hart, but unless you're going to use a stunt double and put Owen Wilson's face digitally on the stunt double, which I suppose you could do, I think that's a tough thing. So, I mean, we'll see. But with the technology, I mean, like I said, I mean, Game of Thrones did that stuff 10 years ago. They were putting actresses' faces like on stunt doubles' bodies for some of their more lascivious scenes. Okay, so I mean, it's possible. I mean, I did interview the Iron Claw gentleman, Harley Race. He's an actor, and he guess what he did? He learned how to wrestle. Chavo Guerrero Jr. taught these guys in that movie to wrestle. All right, folks. If you got any more opinions on this, I will read the whole 67-page document. For the benefit of the fans, for the benefit of the Shane McKennas of the world, I'll probably watch the Royal Rumble as well. I'll monitor it for the benefit of the community. Not that I want to support this god awful company anymore, but for the benefit of those that need my opinion, that demand my opinion, I will watch it reluctantly. It would really be funny if the audience had some good chance, if the audience had a set of balls and had some good chance. Mikey, I hate Logan Paul. He's trash. Not WWE cause heel. He's great in the ring. He shot a live video in death, forced a guy kill himself live. I know what you're talking about here, AJ. Logan Paul did a video, it was probably 4 or 5 years old, if not 6 or 7 years old, where he went, I think it was in, I want to say Japan. Was it Japan, AJ? Where he went to this forest, which is kind of known, if I'm getting the story right, as like the suicide hills, like the suicide forest, where people kind of go often with the intention of ending their own lives, which is not good. And I guess Logan Paul was doing his streaming or his video and he made some type of joke about it. And then he kind of retracted and he apologized and he did like another video where I think he actually went to a therapist or some expert to get educated about it. So look, I'll say this, folks. In the time of where everybody wants to be first and edgy, and I have a hot take on this and I have a hot take on that, if someone actually goes through the process, like apparently, if I'm remembering the story correctly, Logan Paul actually trying to get educated and trying to learn what he did, why it was so offensive, and why it was so disrespectful to the deceased, I'll give him credit for that. Uh, However, I mean, I find Logan Paul, oddly enough, I think the best thing that he does to entertain me is when he's wrestling. I mean, I give the guy a lot of credit. He's a very good, excellent part-time wrestler. If he were to fully apply himself, he could maybe even be better. So I give him credit for that. But when I've watched his typical standard YouTube videos, I find his personality to be kind of boring, to be honest with you. I don't see the great appeal to this guy, except when he's wrestling. So I don't know what else to say about it. Then he apologized for it later, saying that that was the best thing that happened to him. He thinks why he's in WWE and yes, Japan. Okay, well, there you go, buddy. Like I said, I mean, sometimes when you put yourself in the public eye, like I do, like Logan Paul does, I just saw this whole god awful thing of, was it Minaj, Nicki Minaj, and Megan Thee Stallion, or squabbling, or some such thing. When you have yourself in the public eye like that, and the currency of fame, the currency of celebrity, you play kind of a high risk thing every day with whatever you say could be tweeted against you. I mean, I saw this thing with Alyssa Milano yesterday, the Who's the Boss actress. I guess she's 51 years old. She's got like a son who's playing Little League Baseball. She's tweeting out that there's a GoFundMe to raise this kid in his baseball team some money to play sports. And people are like, well, why should we give you money, Alyssa Milano? You're the one getting all these residuals from Who's the Boss and Embrace the Vampire and every other damn movie you've ever done. So, but it's like, hey, I mean, if everybody else is doing it, why shouldn't I? I mean, 15 years ago, Spike Lee was doing GoFundMe or Indiegogo or Kickstarter to make money for a movie, and that's Spike Lee. So I don't know what to tell you, folks. The world is a big mess, and I'm Mike Messier. So let's see. Mikey, Carry On Cross with AOP, his Final Testament, is good, and Bobby and Prophet, Street Profits in Feud is exciting. Okay, fair enough. I mean, you know more about it than I do. I mean, I can check in with the WWE, I can check in with AEW and pick up what they're doing pretty quickly. It's basically what you're telling me is it's factional warfare. I guess this Final Testament is the Paul Ellering group with the AOP, the Authors of Pain. I mean, do these guys actually write books? Do they sit there and write literature that we're supposed to read? And then they got the Scarlet Bordeaux and the Carrion Cross, and there's somebody else in that group, isn't there? So I mean, fine and dandy, And then I mean, but why did they the Hurt? Well, who was the Hurt business? MVP and Bobby and those other guys, Shelton Benjamin. Why did they break them up? And why do they have to have this Hurt Business 2.0? What was wrong with the original group? That's why it's so frustrating to be a WWE fan because when they actually do a slip on a banana peel twice a day and get something right, they tend to screw it up. Let's see here, buddy. Mikey, NXT main roster, not the same show. Yeah. Why Elektra Lopez and NXT turned face against Lola Vice? And last night she helped Santo win against Carlito as heel. I didn't see any of this stuff, buddy, to be honest with you. I guess it's an NXT pay-per-view. I tend to go to the NXT house shows. I like to support the young wrestlers on their come up. But I mean, I did not watch the NXT pay-per-view, so you know more about this than I do. If you go over to the shorts section here on One Pro Wrestling and Sports Fan, you can see some of my live photos from these NXT shows. And I give the young talents a lot of credit. I mean, these young wrestlers, whether they're lifelong wrestling fans or they're just college athletes that are giving pro wrestling a try, a lot of them are very talented, and they're doing their best. Brian Pillman Jr., now known as Lexi King, has been doing some really good, or Lexus King has been doing some very good stuff at these NXT house shows. So I give him credit. But I mean, as far as the storyline stuff with Elektra Lopez and all this stuff, I don't know. I think another funny thing, guys, that I've been thinking about is with all this Vince McMahon stuff, is this going to be like meme material for the next 30 or 40 years? Like, I mean, every once in a while when wrestling gets boring, will they pull out some Vince McMahon shit on your head reference? I mean, we'll see. I mean, I just think it's funny. Well, fine, folks. I'm going to get going. I'm going to read that 67-page document. If you Google it, it's on there. I did make a nice post in the Wrestling Fans Shane McKenna's group. Some gentleman provided the link to that legal document. The Foreign Object is my Facebook wrestling group. Mikey never liked Impact, but TNA is back. It's getting Nick Nemeth. It's getting good with Nick Nemeth. It's drawing your attention and working on getting a cable TV show. I hope that they do better, buddy. I mean, I had some real issues. I was really a big TNA fan. I actually went to their match, their show with Kurt Angle versus Samoa and Joe in the cage, the six sides of cage that was in Worcester, Mass. Worcester. I was a big TNA fan, and then when they just a couple of years, they really just went downhill so quickly. They lost their Spike TV deal. They went to another network, then another one. They really hit the shits pretty hard. And then when they put their men's world title on Tessa Blanchard, and then she left the company, without ever defending the title, I just thought that they hit rock bottom creatively. I know that there's a lot of hardcore TNA fans out there. I was considering to buy their yearly subscription and watch their last pay-per-view. I know my buddy Shane McKenna did. They happened to be going against the NFL playoffs that night for whatever reason. I got back into the NFL pretty hard this year. Maybe it's, Taylor and Kelce have brought me back in. Who knows? But who knows, buddy? In AEW, what is their issue when show is bad? MJF is huge. Draws that. Well, I don't know, man. I mean, the MJF title reign, I think we can agree. I mean, was a disappointment. And the thing about AEW, although I'm wearing the shirt and I support their company, I do feel that they have too many championships. AEW has, or last time I checked, they had this All Atlantic Championship. It used to be, was it called the Mid Atlantic Championship? Or then they had the TNT title. Then they had the world title. What other titles? They have all the ROH titles, ROH Pure title, RH. I mean, I tweeted this out. Why is there an ROH television championship when there's no ROH television show? Then you have tag team titles for everybody. You've got an ROH six-man championship. It's just absurd. And to be honest with you, although that's the least of our problems with these wrestling companies, well, when a fucking wrestling company has to give every wrestler practically a championship or a belt instead of a storyline, you're losing my interest. You've lost my interest. Why Jeff Jarrett has TNA Group and AEW makes zero sense. Is that still going on, buddy? I mean, I don't even know. Is that an AEW or what? I mean, you're right. It does make zero sense. I mean, if anything, I kind of thought that Tony Khan was going to buy TNA or the remnants of TNA or Impact Wrestling a few years ago because they were doing stuff like during the pandemic, the second half of the pandemic, they had Christian Cage winning the Impact World title over Kenny Omega on the second episode, I believe, of Revolution or whatever the Saturday night show is. It just gets to be too much. It's just too many titles. And I mean, I always say this, gentlemen, you know this. When everyone is a champion, nobody is the champion. And we know that all this stuff is kind of just a fantasy. It's just a paradigm in our own collective imaginations. But if there's no logic or sense to it, I'm out. I'm not going to enjoy it. I'm not going to stand by and watch the business consume itself. I'm too intelligent for that. I think that you're too intelligent for that. There's life is too short for bad wrestling. So tonight we'll see what happens. I mean, the people that bought their tickets, I know my buddy. I'm not sure if he's going to this one or not, but Tantalizing Tony, if he's going to this show, I'd be interested in his report. I'd be interested if any of you fine folks that are out there seeing this, if you're going to the show live, the Royal Rumble, it's not too far from me, actually. It's in Tampa, Florida, I believe. Let me know how it goes. I'm hoping that it's a good show. I mean, I think the last Royal Rumble I can remember was last year. Cody, I think they put the men's Rumble first. I think that's kind of a mistake. I think with the legacy of the men's Royal Rumble, here's another thing, and just while we're at it, I think that having two Royal Rumbles on the same show is an error. I think it's fine to have a women's Royal Rumble, but I feel that having two Royal Rumbles that are 30 people in each one, it's just too much Royal Rumbling. I mean, it's more is less. It just diminishes the men's rumble, and the men's rumble diminishes the women's rumble. So if there was a way to maybe split this up, maybe you have an NXT pay-per-view and you put the women's rumble on that and you save the men's rumble for the traditional pay-per-view, or even vice versa if you need to be hashtag just something to split those two matches away from each other. That's like going to a wrestling show and seeing two battle royals in one night or two Texas death matches in one night. It's just too much in my opinion. So anyway, folks, not to be a Vince McMahon and shit on everybody's head about everything, but just sharing thoughts, sharing wrestling thoughts. I'm glad you guys demanded my attention. I will read that 67-page document. Why did Tony buy Ring of Honor? He's done nothing with it. Well, he has done something with it. We're just not watching it. I mean, you could go subscribe to the Honor Club right now. I could, you could, AJ, but we don't because we're already we have lives. I mean, I know that you're a busy guy. You're working. I'm a busy guy. I'm always working. I'm currently working on my novel here, Fighter Play Basketball. I mean, this more intellectual value and integrity in my novel than anything you'll see in these goddamn wrestling programs this year. But in any event, we don't have 24 hours a week to watch pro wrestling, whether it's WWE, AEW, ROH, NXT, TNA, blah, 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 MLW. We don't have time because we're busy human beings. And the wrestling companies think that we're all a bunch of idiot McMarks that are just sitting there with our collective metaphorical dicks in our hand watching their goddamn wrestling shows. Well, we have better things to do with our time. So there you have it. All right, folks. Well, enjoy whatever you do tonight. If it's rumbling, if you watch the NFC games, I am predicting. What am I predicting here? I'm predicting Mahomes and the Chiefs get by the Ravens, and I'm predicting the Lions go to San Francisco with some flowers in their hair. And I'm predicting the Lions versus the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. So I guess I'm predicting the two road teams tomorrow in the championship Sunday, if you care what I think. And that's it. So I'll talk to you guys later. MikeMessier.com. Buy all my books. Subscribe to all my YouTube channels. Do everything I say. Have a nice weekend, gentlemen.